After 36 hours of excruciating labor, the exhausted new mom was finally holding her precious baby girls in her arms. However, the doctor's apologies had left her feeling uneasy. When the doctor examined her, he screamed help. After realizing what he saw, the doctor's scream could probably be heard at least 5 rooms over. It was blood-curdling. The doctor had expected a difficult twin birth, but this was something he could have never prepared for, and he knew he needed help. Matthew and Jessica started to panic. They were shocked that the doctor started screaming for help. They knew that Jessica had some trouble and uncertainties leading up to the pregnancy, but they never imagined being in a situation like this. The doctor stayed away for an awfully long time. Finally, the doctor returned to the room. Sweat was dripping down his forehead, but he had found the help he was looking for. Now they just had to get to work quickly. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our upcoming stories. When Jessica and Matthew first found out they were pregnant, it felt like a complete shock to them. Jessica quickly went to the hospital for an ultrasound and discovered she was pregnant with twins. They were not planning on having one baby initially, and now they're having 2. How was that going to work out? Jessica and Matthew were not even in a relationship together yet. They know each other from their university studies and got along quite well since. Neither of them expected that there would ever be more to it than friendship. After a night out, they started sleeping together as more of a friends with benefits situation. The more often they did this, they started to be less careful in using protection. In fact, they both didn't realize that this could cause problems until Jessica woke up one morning feeling extremely nauseous. It didn't take long for Jessica to figure out what was causing that. She started to panic and decided to rush to the pharmacist and picked up several pregnancy tests. After taking the first test, she was shocked. The test showed that she was pregnant. She couldn't believe it. That's why she tried it again. When all of her tests gave her the exact same result, reality struck. She was having a baby. She needed to speak to Matthew immediately. She never expected it, but he was actually extremely supportive. She told him that she couldn't bring herself to have an abortion, and he totally understands. He told her he wanted to be there for her and the baby, whether that was as a friend or maybe as more. Not much later, the couple learned that they could expect not 1, but 2 babies. This means that the pregnancy is a lot more complex and therefore Matthew has to be a lot more involved. It was at that exact moment that Matthew began to question what he wanted. Jessica was going to need a lot of help during this time. She has been living at her parents' home since the beginning of this year because she is saving up for her own house. The problem is that her parents live on the other side of the country, so she would be very far away from Matthew. After some debating, Matthew decided that he did not want to lose Jessica like that and asked her to move in with him. He had a decently sized place for himself and worked mostly from home. He realizes that it's a very big commitment to make, but that's particularly for one specific reason. Deep down, Matthew knew he wasn't in love with Jessica. Besides that, he recently spoke with a friend about the fact that he was not ready for a relationship yet. Jessica's pregnancy makes the whole situation way more difficult. He also knew that Jessica saw this differently. He decided to put his feelings aside and approach the situation with an open mindset. Perhaps living together for a while and the pregnancy process would change his mind. Maybe after a while, he'll just fall in love with her and there's nothing to worry about. The problem with Matthew is that he isn't in love with Jessica, so watching a friend being pregnant just brings out empathy, but not love. Matthew is taking good care of Jessica in any way he can. He makes sure she gets enough rest and cooks dinner for her every day. While Jessica is starting to fall in love with him more and more every day, Matthew just feels himself grow more distant from her. How is he going to fix this? Matthew never admitted this to Jessica. He thought she had enough worries on her mind at the moment. He decided he was going to hold back on starting a real relationship till at least their children were born. Somehow he also hoped that his feelings for Jessica would grow, but deep down he already knew the answer. That's how they continued. Up until about a month before Jessica's due date, she could hardly walk because of her big belly filled with twins. At that moment, her health really started to take a turn for the worst and she had to spend the rest of the time until her due date in the hospital. As a freshly graduated young woman, she was lucky that her parents were very supportive and supported her financially by paying the hospital bills. Matthew tried to be at the hospital as much as possible, but also relived how it felt like to have the house to himself again. Thinking about how it would be to have Jessica and 2 babies with him here at all times gave him a chill across his spine. How was he going to tell her that he actually wanted her to move back in with her parents after the delivery? Because of the condition she was in right now, Matthew knew he could not tell her this right away. He probably should have done it sooner, but just add that to the list of mistakes he had already made in these past couple months. With the due date now fast approaching, the hospital managed to stabilize Jessica and keep her out of real danger for the most part. But you never know what could happen during the delivery, because a pregnancy with twins is quite special and need extra care. Jessica's parents had also flown out to visit them and to be there for their daughter in these difficult last few days. They needed a place to sleep. Matthew actually assumed that they would book a hotel, but they themselves would like to stay in Matthew's house. The feeling of being open-handed gnawed at him. Should he tell them right away that he saw no future in Jessica? It really got Matthew thinking and made him somewhat unsure of his position in all this. After some days at the hospital, Jessica's situation got stabilized. Even though she was still very weak, her condition at the time was something to be grateful for. The doctors were happy to see her condition get better. At the same time, they were confident that she would be able to deliver the twins all by herself. While Matthew was relieved from stress as Jessica's situation stabilized, he was still full of care. Matthew decided to have a man-to-man conversation with Jessica's father. The talk he had with the lady's father pushed him over the edge. He got the chance to confess that he was to try his best to be a good father to the twins, but he wasn't going to be all that being together with Jessica. At the end of his meeting with Jessica's father that fateful afternoon, he immediately left for the hospital to tell Jessica the news. While he was beginning to think about what could be wrong, he heard her scream at the top of her lungs. He rushed into the room and knelt next to Jessica, who was in pain. As she saw him, her face lit up a little. Matthew noticed this, but it only made him feel worse instead of being gladdened about it. He was sad because he couldn't get to tell her the news he came to the hospital to share. For about 1 hour, Jessica did her best to give birth to the twins. She was doing it with all the strength she had left. Not quite long after, the first baby came out, but there was no time for her to relax or appreciate the baby boy as the other twin was yet to come out. The attention of nearly everyone in the room was diverted when one of the doctors took a closer look at the first twin, and his eyes went wide. Immediately after then, he rushed out of the room with the baby. Jessica was surprised and confused at what was happening. When the other doctor in the room noticed Jessica was beginning to panic, he spoke to calm her down. His response to her was that the doctor that left with the first baby needed to run some tests on him as he had noticed something odd. As Jessica was battling to deliver the second baby, the doctor that had left the room earlier was busy running tests on the first of the twin babies. While he proceeded with the series of tests, he couldn't help but think about how he was going to tell Matthew and Jessica of his findings. After much thought about the situation, he decided to wait. Sadly, he felt the damage had already been done. The second baby was finally delivered. Matthew and Jessica felt a bit relieved from the stress they had been feeling at this happening. The moment they remembered the first baby, they got scared of what the doctor would say about him. As soon as the other doctor heard that the second baby was delivered, he went in the room to deliver the news to them. The doctor returned inside and began muttering words with his face looking down. At this disposition, the pair immediately knew that whatever news the doctor was about to share was not good. It was awkward how the doctor couldn't look them in the eyes, but they still fixed their gaze on him as he talked. The doctor began his words by informing them there was nothing wrong with the baby's health. At this, Matthew and Jessica were wondering what the tests were for and why the doctor's countenance wasn't pleasant. The doctor explained that he wasn't concerned about the baby's health but something else. The doctor quickly erased the thought from their minds by mentioning that what he noticed had to do with the baby's eye color. He mentioned that the baby had beautiful brown eyes, which made him look so cute. But the point of concern was that Matthew and Jessica both had blue eyes, so it was almost impossible for the baby to have brown eyes. The pair heaved a sigh of relief at the doctor's explanation of his concern. While they were thinking about what the doctor said, the medical practitioner continued explaining. He said the best thing to uncover the mystery behind the baby's brown eyes was to run some quick DNA tests. After matching the baby's DNA against that of Matthew, it was revealed that Matthew wasn't the baby's father. The result of the DNA test shocked Matthew to his bones. Surprisingly, Jessica seemed not to be as astonished as expected. She wasn't very surprised because she had always known what happened was possible. All the while, she had wished it would not be the case. Since the truth was out in the open, she had no choice but to spill out the remaining unknown happenings. Jessica confessed to seeing somebody else all the time she and Matthew were sleeping together. Jessica said she had dumped the other guy out of her life when she found out she was pregnant. The next couple of weeks after the babies were born, the truth about their paternity was difficult for the pair. After giving much thought to what had happened, Matthew told Jessica the truth about not wanting to be with her. But he mentioned that he would still like to be there for her and the twins, even if they were not his. Jessica was grateful to Matthew for his kindness towards her. While getting used to motherhood, she by the side involved in a legal battle to see the father of the twins pay them alimony.